And good morning, and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. So, good morning. Happy Monday, everyone. I know the weekend was a little dreary, but I hope everybody got some rest. I know I did. So, with that, let's start with our Kids Corner.
Found a marble on the ground. Blue, shiny, but cracked on one side. He picked it up, turned it in his hand, and sighed. "It's broken," he whispered. "No one will want this." At lunchtime, he tried to toss it away, but another kid saw him and asked, "Why are you throwing it out?" "It has a crack," the boy replied quietly. "It's not perfect." The other child smiled, took the marble gently, and lifted it toward the sun. "Look," he said softly. "The light goes through the crack and makes colors you can't see in a perfect marble." Rainbow reflections sparkled across their hands. The first boy's eyes widened. He held the marble again, but this time, he held it like something precious, because he finally understood. Sometimes the part you think is your flaw is the part that makes you shine.
Yeah, and that's why there is actually a passage that says, God says, his perfection is made in weakness, right? He takes our weaknesses to make us better. So always remember, yeah, things might not be going well with you at the time, but don't look at your weakness as a failure. Look at it as an opportunity to see what is it about that weakness that makes you shine, right? There's always a bright side. So let's get to our mantra of the day and just looking at how to honor God with our body. So, God, please guard our mind and our thoughts. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect my ears. Help me to listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect my eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please protect my mouth. Help me to speak life. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please help my hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. God, please protect my reproductive organs and help me to honor you, God, with purity. God, help me to honor you with my body. God, please protect my feet and help me to walk in your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. So, again, that is something that we read daily here on Unfiltered Vision News because I want to just set the stage for the day and just remind us, sometimes delivering this news without getting a little bit, I should say, emotional isn't easy. But I keep it in perspective because it's information. And the thing about it is, if we do not have good information, we may not make great decisions. And that's why I stepped into this arena because I want people to have good information so they can make good decisions. So, again, thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. So, there is a video I wanted to start. Usually, I have my sports recap with Mr. Conscious Outlaw. I don't see him on the stage yet. Usually, he joins like right when I start. So, let me check with him really quick. So, we will take a short break, and then when we come back on the other side, we will get into our news for today. So, again, thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, and we'll see you on the other side.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. With the energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Taking your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And next, we will have our sports corner with host Conscious Outlaw. And let me bring Conscious to the stage. Good morning, Conscious. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning, Unfiltered Vision family. How are y'all doing this morning?
We are doing well. Thank you so much for joining us here. Well, I'll just let you go ahead and get into it.
Okay, so we have the final results of the college football 12 team bracket. It's going to be James Madison. That's going to be their first year into the college football bracket. At number 12, they're going to play Oregon. And then number 4, Texas Tech gets a bye. And then this is going to be very exciting. Number 9, Alabama, and number 8, Oklahoma face each other in the very first round. And Indiana shocked everyone and beat Ohio State, which gave them a first round bye. We talked about that last week too. And
Mhm.
then Tulane, number 11, and Ole Miss, number 6, and Georgia gets the first round bye. And then Miami, number 10, Texas and then Texas A&M, number 7, and Ohio State gets the bye. So this is going to be really exciting. I think they're kind of getting it right the second year around. Getting the teams right where they belong because usually we was kind of and it was a little upsetting. Notre Dame got left out because they were at number 10. They lost to Miami. So this is a
Did you
really
see
exciting
that
time for
letter?
college
Did you see that
football.
letter that Notre Dame sent? I was like, "Oh, okay." They're just like, "You know what? We're just not gonna go." I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
what?"
Yeah, very, very interesting. And so that's college football. We're gonna watch this for y'all holidays. It's gonna be really exciting. Now I want to talk about our brother Shadur Sanders.
Wow,
Yes,
man.
this is
Over
very
350
interesting.
yards. I was like, I put him on my bench. I have a fantasy football team, and I was like, "You know what? I just want to put him on the bench. I just want to see what he does." I hate I didn't put him in. Oh,
Oh man,
I hate I
he
didn't put him
he threw he
in.
threw for exactly 364 yards. He
Wow.
was 23 for 42, 3 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. The second rookie to actually pass for that many yards in his rookie year. I think Joe Burrows did it before him. And that just goes. And then he faced off against the other first round draft pick. Well,
Mhm.
not the first round draft pick, Cam Ward. And I know they both play on not so good teams or whatever like that, but it just looks like he's head and shoulders better. And it goes to I guess I'm gonna have to use the word the collusion the NFL did to stifle his financial um payday from getting drafted in the first round by letting him drop
Okay.
all the way to the fifth round
Mhm.
and for everyone to have all of these assumptions that he was overconfident that he's really not, and now he's showing he's NFL special. So
Yeah.
hats off to him and the Sanders family. They're very faithful, God fearing people. You see, he always does his prayers before the starts of the
Yeah.
game. I'm
Yeah.
very proud. We should all be very proud of that young brother. And so Yeah, that's pretty. Oh yeah. Also, another person I want to talk about is Miss Sports Wednesday. Bud Crawford was stripped of his WBC title
Hmm.
because he wouldn't pay a fee, not because he wouldn't take a fight, but because all of the belts, when you win the purse, I think with the Canelo fight, you had to pay out like some, they get a little piece of your purse or whatever. Well,
Okay.
the WBC, they want to charge him more than the other rest of the four belts, and so he basically went on, I think, Instagram and just went off. And he has a lot of kids. He's married to his wife. They have a lot of kids he takes care of. And he's like, why do y'all think that y'all deserve more money than the rest of the sanctioning bodies? And it's a guy named Suleiman who actually runs the WBC, and he's I guess you would call him the modern day Don King because he kind of runs boxing
Right.
or whatever like that. And so he's who he's like standing up to and saying like, no, I'm not gonna let you do me like this. So
Mhm.
that just goes to show, even in sports, a lot of things are targeted against us as Black Americans. We see it all the time, but we always seem to fight through it. So that's all I got today. The NFL is rounding up for a little while, so I'm gonna let them sit and see what happens the next couple of weeks because of the wild card. We already kind of know who the division leaders is and stuff like that. And so yeah, that's all I got for today.
Yeah, I know it was kind of a surprising loss with Kansas City yesterday. I don't think
Mm.
people really
Yeah.
expected Houston to go all in the way they did. I was like, they held Patrick Mahomes 10-0 until the second half. I was like, oh, so this is what we're doing. So the $500 million man, because they are paying $100 million. I just need to remind people of that, was shut down. You know, so they're not gonna be making it to the playoffs, or do you think they might just, if somebody
Mm.
loses or whatever? Because I know they're kinda like in that wild card situation.
Yeah, that's why I said I'm gonna let some things sit and marinate on that because we already know who the division leaders is. But like, yeah, it's some outside contenders. Like, it's Kansas City gonna need some help from a lot of other teams to get in. And
Gotcha.
like we have other teams like the Chargers that are surging and stuff like this. So I just want to, yeah, it's gonna be very interesting wild card weekend.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us and bringing us a sports recap from the weekend, Conscious.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that was Conscious Outlaw. Please make sure you follow him on X under Conscious Outlaw. The Black, DABLACK, and again, Conscious Outlaw, the Black on X. And again, thank you everyone for joining me here this morning on Unfiltered Vision News. Just me, KT4IK. Thank you so much for joining us on YouTube. And Dr. C, thank you so much for joining us on X. So, the next bit of news that I want to get into, there has been a lot of talk about the Somali community, who's covering it, who's not, right? And how this is really going to shake out, right? Because I know at one point, people may feel that the Somali community themselves are being targeted, and we have to remember there's going to be good and bad apples in every community. I think the problem is with the way Ilhan Omar, for example, has positioned herself and the people she's surrounded herself with. There was a video that I had played on the show before, and Alex Jones actually played it yesterday, where there was another leader in the Somali community saying, she's going to fight for Somalis within the United States. I'm like, huh? Like, it's interesting because on one hand, they'll claim we're just here, trying to be good Americans. But on the other hand, you're always putting Somali first. So which is it? Right. And I'm not saying it's not, you can be proud of your heritage, but if you're going to be an American, be an American. And the ties to the terrorist Al Shabaab, like all of this is coming out. So I had a little bit of a bigger question that I'll get into after I show you guys this video is is this just happening in Minnesota or is this happening in other places and we're still not hearing about it? Cuz the media seems to have like, "Oh, okay, we'll finally start covering it." Yeah, you have to now. Cuz if you don't, what are you doing?
Look at this. This right here is a breakdown of how much time each of these networks right here have spent on what I believe is supposed to be the biggest story in America right now. Yeah. See, when a current sitting governor, the commander in thief of Minnesota, is caught up in a multi-billion-dollar fraud, embezzling taxpayer dollars in order to siphon that money into the pockets of illegal immigrants, or specifically, an 80 percentile of Somalians who are being paid by the government to chill. Yeah, when that whole thing gets exposed, according to ABC, CBS, and NBC, aka the mainstream propaganda machine, that is considered a non-story. And by the way, for anybody who's trying to call this whole thing racism, go ask a Black American about how they feel about this one.
Child, the comment section on the video I made about the Columbus, Ohio Somali fraud is epic. Go read the comment section. First of all, let me address something. I got a whole bunch of people talking about, well, you need to go make videos. You need to take pictures. Child, do I look like Eyewitness News to you? Do I look like a private investigator? And do I look like I can fight pirates? I cannot. And therefore, I will not be putting myself in harm's way. If you want to know what's going on, you come see for yourself. Or read the comment section. People from Columbus, Ohio are all up and down that comment section talking about, yep, she's right. I've seen it for myself. I agree. Columbus is horrible. You please come and help us in Columbus. They are all up and down the comment section, but so are people from all around the country, from other parts of the country where this exact same Minnesota fraud is going on in their community. And they are begging for ICE and fraud investigators to come help them as well. So, honey, you don't need pictures. Read the comments. You know I'm telling the truth. With that being said, the best thing about my comment section are the comments from the Somalis. Child, they are laughing at us, saying we just jealous because we don't know how to work the system the way they do. They are admitting to the fraud. They are saying stuff like this is their land. They were promised the United States of America, and so they are taking it and taking it over. Go read the comment section, honey. It's better than the video.
You don't have to read the comment section. I have some clips for you today. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel. And to the first clip, the opening clip there, don't you find it suspicious that mainstream media is not covering a story where a sitting governor under his watch, 6.5, upwards of $8 billion has gone missing due to fraud? And mainstream media has decided not to cover it? Don't you find that suspicious? Let's keep going in this video. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the content.
You know, like the racists are actually just jealous of Somalis because of how successful we became in a matter of one generation. And I was watching a lot of videos that are coming up on my For You page where people are saying, how come Somalis have nice cars and we don't? We've been here like how many generations? We were born here, our ancestors are from here, but Somalis drive nice cars. This whole thing is just making me realize is jealousy. They're jealous of our success because they expect us like to be at the bottom of the bottom, right? And then we come here one generation, we work hard, we save our money. And Somalis are not the only community that committed fraud, okay? We're not all committing fraud, okay? Every community has bad apples, but they're trying to use that as leverage to hate on us, right? And attack our community. But what it is like when you're an immigrant group and you're Black on top of that and you're African, they hate you to be successful.
That's not true. You have Americans in general that work every day, pay into the system. They found out recently that majority of the social service, welfare, socialist benefits that, are given in this country, a large majority of illegal immigrants and quote unquote legal immigrants are receiving those benefits. It's a small portion of Americans, yet We're the ones that pay the lion's share into the tax coffers of America. Yeah. So you got a lot of people frustrated behind that. And we're not jealous. A lot of folks are just angry. We're not jealous at your success. If you actually got here and just got it out the mud, like so many of us have to, it'd be like, whatever. But the fact that you guys are scamming and defrauding and stealing taxpayer dollars, these are that come from the American people. Yeah. The average American has a problem with that, a huge problem with that. But let me play these next two clips from Ilhan Omar and another Somali individual talking trash about America.
cabsi baa loo daara way yaabeen war dadka noocaana xaggee ka imaadeen bay leeyihiin kommentiyadii iyo meel kastoo wax soo gelayaan baa loogu daata dhalinyarada Soomaaliyeed ee jooga Soomaaliya iyo Kenya iyo Afrika ayaguna kommentiyada waxay ku soo qorayaan ise u ceetamayaan iyo cadaanka se u ceenayaan cadaankii baa yaabay tiimkii loo yaqaan Mega ee loo soo gaabiyay Make America Great Again ee Team Trump ahaa ayaka la bahdila dad ayaka ka waalan bay dagaal la galeen marka dagaalku ha socdo saas ha lagu wado Minnesota anaga iska leh Mareykan anaga iska leh
They're letting it be known they're not going away. They claim Minnesota as theirs and they're willing to fight for it. So that right there is a message to the folks up in Minnesota and Americans across the country that, hey, you're going to have to get out here and compete and fight for your rights and fight for your nation.
caawa aan fursad u helay madaxweynaha Soomaaliya madaxweyne Xasan Sheikh Maxamuud inaan maanta ku soo dhaweyno Minneapolis aniga iyo madaxweynaha special relationship aan qabnaa aniga adeeraan ugu wacaa asigana gabarteeyu idhahaa madaxweyne sidii qof kasta uu yiri mininkaaga waaye ku soo dhawow Minneapolis aad iyo aad aan ugu faraxsanahay in maanta madaxweynaheena aad tahay.
Stop it right there. Now, she's in Minnesota welcoming the Somali president and calling that dude her president. If they really feel this way, go back home. Go back to Somalia. Go back. We're okay with that. We'd even support it. But this is a sitting representative. This is an individual in the House of Representatives, supposedly supposed to be representing people here in the United States, claiming allegiance to another country and you know, calling another individual her president. This is crazy.
Now, I also wanted to add a little bit to that. She is not protected by the speech and debate clause in this arena. And see, what she would probably argue is, well, I have freedom of speech. You do have freedom of speech, but this is about allegiance. That's a totally different conversation. And you were showing that you do not have any allegiance to the United States of America, nor the president of the United States, Donald Trump. Okay? You've made it real clear where your allegiance is. It's not with the United States. And there are other videos like this one where she even talks about how she's going to go from the interior. And I actually have that video. I may play that for you guys after this one, where that's what she says. That is who this person is. This person is not here to represent the interest of the United States and actually be there for the benefit of the United States citizens. She's here for Somali citizens and what she can do for them and use the United States to benefit her Somali community, period. She is not about helping Americans. I've yet to find a video where she's actually out like, yes, we want to help Americans. I haven't found it yet. If you guys out there have seen anything, let me know. And Minnesota Fats and Sincerely Lawless, thank you so much for reposting the stream and joining us this morning.
Ilhan Omar, or whatever the heck her name is, I don't know, I don't care. She's the very definition of overplaying your hand. She really thought she was gonna come over here and just rob Americans blind, and well, we was never gonna find out. Like, how did they really Captain Phillips an entire city? And that guy, Waltz, who was...
And if everybody didn't know, that was a reference from a movie, the whole Captain Phillips thing.
gonna be Kamala Harris's VP. Yeah, your girl that y'all love so much to be defending to the ground. He stood there and co-signed these Somalian citizens robbing Americans blind. And that's why I will never be a Democrat. Ever again. Like, there's not enough money in the world to make me a Democrat. Anyway, they're gonna try and drag Black Americans into their shit, talking about civil rights and baby, you created this problem for Somalians and Somalians only. You had no intention of helping us, so you're on your own. Have fun.
Yeah, a lot of folks are not falling for the grift. They're falling for the grift. Those of us, born and raised here in the United States of America, our parents, our lineage comes from the United States of America. We are Americans. And it's past time that we start looking at this country in that manner. I've always looked at it like that, but there's a lot of people out there that feel like, well, this is kind of our nation and we can also go somewhere else. Not true. Not true. This is our country. We got to be willing to stand up, defend it, and fight for it if we want to maintain our way of life and our position in this country. Or you're going to allow people to come over here that just got here and within a generation take over. And it won't be good for anybody. Hit the like button. Let's keep going.
Let me tell you something. People are not jealous of Somalis or Somalia. And Trump is right. That place is a shit hole. And for one Somalia or quite a few Somalis,
I will apologize ahead of time for language. I usually try to keep this rated G, rated grandma, because my grandma does watch. So I do apologize for any profanity.
who've come into my comments after I did my viral video calling out Ilhan Omar, they have the nerve to call my country of Zambia a shithole. Well, let me tell you something. People jump easily to go to Zambia, which is a beautiful country. In fact, Donald Trump Jr. was just recently there last month. Yes, he met up with our president, President Hakainde Hichilema, seen here. You can see the picture. He met up with him because Donald Trump Jr. went on a private visit. He went on he was on vacation there, and he met up with our president, and he loves going to Zambia. It's not the first time that he's been out there. If anything ever happened to me and it didn't work out for me to be here, I can comfortably and easily say I'll go home to Zambia and I would make it out there because there's a lot going on. My country of Zambia has so much potential, but nobody is jealous of Somalis. And Somalis right now, they are pissed off with Africans. They're really pissed off with us because we are not rallying behind them and we're not supporting them. The reason why we are not supporting you Somalis is because y'all are selfish people, you're ungrateful, you're haters, you're racist, you're tribalistic. Nobody wants to be behind you and you're so standoffish. And the most important thing, y'all have said you're not Africans. You said you're Somalis. You gravitate more towards Arabic, those Arabic countries. So you've distanced yourself from Africans. That is why we don't support you. Nobody wants to support y'all. Y'all are a problem. You're a big problem. You're thieves, you're liars, you're scammers. Nobody trusts you. And a lot of Africans are embarrassed by y'all.
Wow. I've heard that, though. I've heard that. And you have people from South Africa and a multitude of countries all throughout the continent of Africa. I believe there's 54 of them. And they don't have a whole lot of nice things to say about the Somali people, even on the continent of Africa. Sheesh. Wow.
And you guessed it. Do you know what the predominant religion is in Somalia? Take a guess. Islam. Over 99% of the population. You guessed it.
Somalis are not terrorizing this nation. We are helping it thrive. Somalis have always seen themselves as a fabric of this nation.
Are you sure about that, Elon Omar? You want to retract that statement? Nope. All right, let's pull up some facts, shall we? Let's pull up some more. Right. Helping America thrive. Here's where my problem lies. Ilhan Omar is always talking negatively about America, the country that she resides in, and she's always speaking highly about Somalia, you know, the country that she won't go back to. It's amazing how much high esteem Somalia gets when it's coming out of her mouth, just speaking about it, when in actuality, here are the facts about Somalia. So for starters, United States listed Somalia as a level 4 risk. It's the highest level of advisory. Do not travel there. They're saying it's high crimes, high terrorism, don't forget kidnapping and piracy. Also, forgive me for my pronunciation, but Al-Shabaab conducts terrorism attacks, bombings in Mogadishu. So that's Somalia. Organized crime is very prevalent. It's a hub for human trafficking, illicit network. Oh yeah, and we can't forget in Somalia, there's weak governance. They have poor law enforcement, and also some areas are heavily restricted and governed by Sharia law. Human trafficking, arms trafficking, sexual violence, piracy. Shall I go on? And it is a fact, not an opinion or a feeling. It is an objective fact. It's one of the most dangerous countries in the entire world. Obviously, not all Somalis are pirates or all these other criminals, right? But when you have a large portion of people doing something and you bring that over to another place, chances are it's going to continue. Never in the history of ever have I seen a third world country come to a first world country and the first world country get better and improve when they don't assimilate, which we see so often within their religion.
Yeah, she's absolutely right. I want to hear from you guys in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel.
And that is a video from Righteous Perspective. And good morning, Sincerely Lawless. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you. Appreciate that. And appreciate you, Dr. C, for joining us this morning. And Jackson Wild says, that's true. You don't hear bad things about Africa. It's the Islamics that attacked ordinary Afriand and Taj racial. Okay, not sure what you were trying to say there. Of it are entirely involved with Islamic slavery and Banshee. Yeah, you don't. And so that is also part of the propaganda machine as well, right? Because I dated somebody from South Africa, and he was just asking me certain questions just to see what I knew, what I didn't know, and certain things. He goes, it's so sad how a lot of Black Americans, and at that time I think they did call us African Americans. It was weird, but anyway, so Black Americans just don't know a lot about Africa. And what we do know is like the National Geographic Channel, thinking that, people all live in the bush and they don't have houses or cars or they're civilized or anything like that, because that is part of the propaganda machine. You could ask like somebody, maybe that doesn't watch a lot of TV or whatever. They would just assume that people in Africa do not have civilization. I'm just being very honest with you. They would just assume people just live in the bush and they're not an industrial nation. Now there are parts of Africa that are like that, but there's parts of the United States that are like that. I'm not saying people are living in the bush, but they live off grid, right? They're not all into technology. The Amish, they live off grid and their community is, somewhat civilized, but they don't drive cars. Right? They don't have all this technology and stuff, and they don't really interact with the rest of society in that way. They barter, right? So I wanted to play another video with Ilhan Omar, just really talking about, what she wants to do for the Somali community within the United States.
aan nahay dad Soomaali ah waxaan nahay dad isjecel waa laga yaabaa meelaha qaarkood inaan isku xagxaganno laakiin haddii runtii ay imaato waxaan nahay dad isku tashto dad walaalo ah.
And so for those that are just listening and not really looking at this video, it's translating what she is saying, but I'll just wait till it gets to the part where she talks about, her position and where she wants to help Somalis within the interior of the United States.
Dad dhiig lah, dad isku og inay Soomaali yihiin inay Muslim yihiin oo iyagana isku hiiliya dadka walaalahoodna u hiiliya marka daraad markii ayaan dhexdaas markii aan maqalnay in qaar Soomaali ah ama Soomaali sheegato in Ethiopia ay la galeen ما بقى كان في صومالي وحلو قوله agreement هشيس محمود نور هذا أنا كصومالي قبضي صعب معها تتبضنا يسوع عيو حليهن.
And she says, many Somalians have personally called me to encourage me to speak to the U.S. government. Now, she was talking about, different other African countries, but they're calling on her to speak to the U.S. government. So they see her, even though she's a congresswoman and she's supposed to be looking out for the interests of Americans, they want her from the interior almost to act like an ambassador for them and just represent Somalis within the United States. And it's like, no, like that's not a thing. If that's what you want, then you need to go back to Somalia and be an ambassador from Somalia and then deal with the United States that way. If that's what you want her to do, right? You can totally do that. Not that you would have any position within the interior of the United States. So that's what really makes this interesting, especially about her.
دولة مريكنك إن الله هذا الشدواية دولة مريكنك محيك خبنيسا جوابتي ذو حقها دولة مريكنك وحيك خبنيسا وحي.
She said, my answer to Somalis was that the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. Excuse me? You don't tell us to do anything for anyone. You're supposed to be representing Americans. And this is why people are so upset with her. Because she talks out of both sides. And that needs to stop. You are either an American or you're Somali. And that's it. And the thing about it is, I don't really think as of late, and this is my opinion, that those that are, being naturalized, they really don't take that oath seriously. And I'm not saying that all of them don't, but from what I keep seeing, I'm like, okay, you're supposed to say, I am no longer going to be loyal to the country that I've left. I'm going to be loyal to the United States. It's going to be United States first. I can still love the country that I left, still have a heart for my country, but it's about being an American first. And I'm going to put the values and have my loyalty to America first before my country. I think there was a young lady in a video I saw about a week ago, and she was from Colombia, and the guy asked her a question. So if it came down to it and there was a conflict between Colombia and the United States, just random question. And he was like, so who would you be loyal to? And she said, Colombia. And I was like, whoa. And he was like, but you're a naturalized citizen. Yeah, no, they take an oath. So she lied because her allegiance and her loyalty lie with Colombia. They don't lie here in the United States. And that's dangerous to have anyone like that be a naturalized citizen here in America. Like for that, she needs to be deported, period. Anybody that's like that, you need to go because you don't want to be here. Your loyalty doesn't lie here because that endangers the United States and it will destroy us and break it apart. Like, look, Benjamin Franklin said it best. It will remain a republic if you want it to be. Okay? So if we want to maintain our republic, that's our job. To make sure that we remain a republic. But if we allow people to come in here, and this is again my opinion, calling it a democracy, which it's not. And then some people want to call it's a democratic republic. No, it's a republic. It says we the people. Period. And Uncle Coldwater says, good morning. I believe that all immigrants take a fake oath just to achieve paperwork to live in America, but they have no allegiance to America. They have allegiance to their country flags and soil And I believe that all of them, except for the foundational Americans, you're not wrong because it comes up a lot and it's not just the Somali community. That's why I want people to be like, you're just picking on her. No, I'm just talking about this particular representative because there are other representatives that are not from Somalia that are in our United States Congress, House, and Senate, and they put their countries above the United States and they blatantly talk about it. And then they want to turn around and be like, well, that's just my freedom of speech. No, this is a loyalty issue. And in my opinion, they need to be removed from office, denaturalized, and deported. Period. I don't care if they've been here for 30 years. Get out. Your loyalty's not here. And that's fair. Okay? Not talking about taking away your money and all the other stuff, but I'm saying you need to be denaturalized and deported because your loyalty's not here. But let's finish with the video. It's not that much longer.
annaga aan dhahno dowladda Mareykanka qabo waa kalsoonidaas inaan isku qabno annaga Soomaali haddii aan nahay.
She says they will do what we want and nothing else. They must follow our orders, and that is how we will safeguard the interest of Somalia. She's talking about doing that from the interior of the United States. Now, a lot of people say, well, that's treasonous. It's not treasonous because treason has a different scrutiny. But some people may look at it as disloyalty and a violation of the oath she took to become an American citizen. She is blatantly saying what she's going to do in the best interest of another country, using the interior of our country, saying they're going to do what we tell them to do and nothing else. Excuse me? But that's what she said. Says we Somalians must have the confidence in ourselves that we call the shots in the U.S. That we call the shots? Excuse me? It's that. You got to go. You got to go because you're creating almost like a beehive. I'll use that analogy. Using a beehive within our country, and the next thing you know, we're going to be under attack as American citizens. When we had compassion and mercy on your people, bringing them here as refugees. This is why Donald Trump is so upset, and he wants every single person that is of Somali descent off the soil and sent back to Somalia. It's this right here. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, well, we just can't. Not all of them are. Look, if they all have this mentality, and I don't know, maybe some of them don't. But if they have this mentality, they have to leave. They do not have an allegiance. They're not in alignment with us. And this is a congresswoman saying this. This is a member of our Congress. I just need everybody to realize that this is not just an activist. Look. And the speech and debate clause does not cover her in this. She can't use that. No speech and debate clause. No, this is my freedom of speech. No, this is a loyalty issue. Plain and simple, short and sweet. She says we will live in in a country, one of your daughters is in Congress to represent your interest. No, you're supposed to be representing the interest of the American people. That's why people elected you. Or did you get elected just to take care of the interest of people from Somalia? And you just admitted the latter. Says for as long as I am a as long as I am in Congress, Somalia will never be in danger. Its waters, Indian Ocean, will not be stolen by Ethiopia or others. We're not concerned about those waters. Why are you concerned about another country and what they're doing? And if you are, go back to Somalia and protect them, because now that you've actually gotten experience, right, in government, you might do very well in your country of Somalia to build it up. I'm not against that. Go home. But don't use our resources to do that, because that's not our business. That's the business of Somalia. Again, it's a loyalty issue.
waddanka Soomaaliya biyaheeda dad kaleeta iyo badeeda dad kale ma qaadanayaan. Waddanka Mareykanka.
And she says the U.S. would not dare to support anyone against Somalia to steal our land or oceans. Again, stop using the United States to pick a fight with other people. It's none of our business. It truly isn't. Sleep in comfort knowing I am here to protect the interests of Somalia from inside the U.S. system. These are things that she's saying. Nobody's making her say it. Again, this is a loyalty issue. She is violating her oath of being an American. This right here, a court would have to denaturalize her and deport her. And that's what I want.
Marka taas ka seexda reer Minnesota gabadhi.
The woman you sent to Congress is working. I can't see it.
Congress u dirsateen way idinka war haysa.
I wanted to go back a little bit to what she was saying.
Reer Minnesota gabadhi Congress u dirsateen
is working something at night to protect your interests. So she's not talking about the interests of the American people. And I'll pause it there, and I'll make sure to put the link to the video so you guys can watch it again for yourselves. But it's just very sad, truly sad, that, you know, we have somebody inside of our own government working in the best interest of another country that's not our government. Knuckle Coolwater says the Somalians are very bold. They're now getting people's TikToks banned because we're speaking out against these unethical Martian-headed people. I really believe it's time for FAFO moments with these people. And you know, the other thing that's very scary that I've been saying for a while is that, unfortunately, our government is setting it up so we're angry with people directly, right? It's like, you know, at a certain point, and this is just my opinion, I don't want it to get to the point where they're like, yeah, we need to go out, we need to fight in the streets. I'm like, no. No, this is something that needs to be handled in the halls of our Congress, because see, our Congress is who has allowed this. Our government at the state and federal level, they've allowed these shenanigans to go on, and they are the individuals that need to be held responsible. We need to put the energy where it needs to be. I'm not angry with the Somali people, right? I'm angry that someone in our government allowed them to do what they're doing. Okay? Because there was somebody in the interior allowing the fraud. There was somebody in the interior seeing this go on. And even though they said something, there was somebody else blocking it. And that actually did happen. So I wanted to share this with you guys because I, you know, do my research and different things. So I wanted to, first of all, look at the fraud going on in Columbus, Ohio, as it was stated in the video from a righteous perspective. And so, yeah, there have been cases involving members of the Somali community in Columbus, Ohio. So here's what happened is the Tau Kif market food stamp and WIC fraud. And this was back in 2010 and 2019. Now, let's just have a little bit of brief history. The Somali refugees started coming over here, and I want to say like the early 90s. It was when George Bush Sr. was in office. So this would have probably been like, it was before, how should I say it? Before Clinton got in office and Bush Sr. was coming out of office, that transition. But he started with the okay of bringing people from Somalia here from their country that was war torn, right? And gave them refugee status. And even then, there was a case of fraud with remittances in the 90s. So fraud has followed their community. And that's sad because I know there are people in their community that aren't like that. But because the people that are committing the fraud are given the spotlight, it makes the whole community look like that. Just saying. It just does. Now, overview. Brothers Hassan Nurisu, 40, and Abdur Nisu, 47, owners of the Taufik Market, a Somali specialty grocery store in Columbus's west side, were accused of running a long-term scheme to defraud the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Act. Wow. And WIC, right? The Women and Infants Children's Program. They allegedly redeemed over 10 million in benefits, including more than 8 million in SNAP and 2.1 million in WIC from October 2010 to November 2019. Mainstream media is not talking about this. They're not. But alternative media is. And I want to be one of these people to be like, look, this has been happening. This started happening, what, 15 years ago? And we're just now getting, wind of it, right? So the fraud involved converting benefits into cash for ineligible items or personal use, such as accepting benefits for non-food purchases or exchanging them at discount rates. So how people would sell their food stamps like 2 for 1, right? So for every dollar of food stamps, you get 50 cents in cash, basically. So federal investigators conducted undercover buys and reviewed transaction records confirming fraudulent activity. The legal outcome, they were indicted by a federal jury in February of 2020. Now, this was kind of at the height of the pandemic. So nobody was really paying attention to anything of this going on, right? And on conspiracy to commit wire fraud and theft of government funds. Both pleaded guilty in October 2020 in a U.S. District Court in Columbus. Sentencing details were not immediately available in public records, but the case highlighted vulnerabilities in benefit redemption at ethnic markets. But it's happened everywhere. I mean, it's happened in New York and outside of the Somali community, right? Where people were able to convert, I would say, their food stamps into cash for non-food items. This isn't new. This has always happened. Okay. Always. Since they have the little booklets of food stamps. I'm just saying there's always been fraud with this. So I don't want everybody to be like, oh my God. No, this is nothing new. It's always been there. But the problem is it's the amounts that it's happening within a particular community. Anybody want to look into like the Latino community to see if it's happening, or the Black community to see that it's happening? Well, nobody's doing it to this degree. That's the difference. That's why there's such a spotlight on this, because it's like, okay, it's not just happening in Minnesota, it's also happening in Ohio. It's also happening some other places too. We're going to look at that. So Somali community link nonprofit mismanagement and fraud vulnerabilities. Okay. So the overview, the Somali Community Link, and that's a name, a nonprofit formed in 2020 to support the Somali community. Now that's very specific. So you're not helping Americans, you're just helping people in your community. During the COVID-19 pandemic, faced scrutiny for mishandling over $2 million in federal relief funds allocated by the Biden administration for rental assistance and other aid distribution. The organization received funds to help Somali families with housing and pandemic relief, but failed to account for at least 187,000 in unspent and unreturned rental assistance. An independent audit conducted but unreported until 2025. That's weird. Revealed significant shortcomings, including lack of required reporting. On noncompliance with legal requirements, and highlighted fraud risk due to poor internal controls. Now, this was something that Ilhan Omar, she had wrote a letter after, so they passed the bill, right, where she did help, and that was for everybody, right? She helped the bill to help everybody. But then when she saw the fraud that came up behind it, she says, there really needs to be guardrails in place. But she said it after the fact. It was after the fraud was committed. But the way the bill was actually written initially, you know, it did have, how should I say it? Oops, I did not mean to do that. I made everything too small. Um, it did have vulnerabilities that she pointed out, and she was saying, hey, we need to make sure that we safeguard this. But like I said, it happened after the vulnerabilities were already exposed, because they lowered the threshold so that nonprofits could participate, right, in these areas outside of schools and elementary schools to help children make sure that they weren't hungry and other vulnerable people out there, with everything that happened in the pandemic. And then there wasn't a lot of oversight on the monies that were given. So this is where, you keep seeing this window of 2020 till now, with a lot of fraud that was happening. Fraud was even happening with PPP loans. Look, it's everywhere. It's rampant during that window. So auditors noted increased likelihood of mismanagement, noncompliance, and potential misuse of federal funds, though no criminal charges were filed as of late 2025. So even though all these things were found, nobody's gone to jail yet over this. Now, this is just Columbus. Now, the nonprofit had political ties to State Senator Michelle Reynolds and State Rep Ishmael Muhammad, both with financial links to the group, right? Secured additional funding, including 350,000 for a community center, despite the audit findings. Campaign contributions from the nonprofit or affiliates to these officials totaled thousands of dollars. So not only did they take this money from the government, they were paying government officials. Yeah, like this, all of this is a mess. So the legal outcome, no indictments as of December 2025, but the case drew media attention for ongoing public funding amid red flags. The organization's online presence became inactive following the 2025 death of its executive director. Wow. So the incident echoed national scrutiny of Somali-led nonprofits, similar fraud in Minnesota's children's nutrition programs, raising questions about oversight of ethnic-specific aid groups. Again, I think they're just people taking advantage of the compassion of others, right? We are a generous nation. We are a prosperous nation. We are very compassionate when it comes to things like this. And it's really sad when people are using it in a nefarious way, because I know people in this particular space that want to do right by other people and make sure that they have what they need. I know somebody who's running a nonprofit school and they need a bus and all these things. They don't want to defraud the government. They want to do right by the people in their community. But when you have situations like this, it makes even those people look bad. It makes it look like everybody's just on the grift and the take when there are actually people out there doing the work. We need to have better oversight. So the cases have fueled occasional backlash backlash amplified by national rhetoric. For instance, following the 2024 convictions of the $250 Minnesota children nutrition fraud scheme involving Somali immigrants unrelated to Columbus, President elect Trump in late 2025 threatened to end temporary protected status for Somalis and labeled the community garbage and linked to crime. Well, unfortunately, even if it's a small number of people, it looks like a pattern because somebody was benefiting from the theft, and those were the people in the Somali community specifically. Somalis were stealing, giving it to their people. Plain and simple. So, in response, Columbus leaders, including city officials and Somali held held a press conference on December 7th. So that was just yesterday, to reaffirm support for the community and condemn harassment. This came amid reports of a local woman being doxxed and harassed at home after calling for a fraud investigation into Columbus's Somali community on social media. Wow. So she was being doxxed and harassed at her home, calling for a fraud investigation into Okay. So, no widespread Somali fraud wave has been reported in Columbus. Investigations like a 2025 pandemic unemployment scheme stealing 7.3 million involved unrelated individuals. Okay. Now, to go on, so I asked, I said, can you this was that. Where's this one? Oops. We got more than one. Because it was one I wanted to see across the United States, right? Outside of Minnesota and also outside of Ohio. I'm like, is this truly a pattern of fraud happening other places? And it says yes. While Minnesota has the largest Somali American population, around 80,000 to 84,000, and is currently the epicenter of heightened scrutiny behind the ongoing federal investigations into welfare social services fraud involving over 1 billion in alleged scams like fake daycare reimbursements, housing claims, and medical billing. Similar issues and controversies have surfaced in other states with notable Somali communities. These include fraud allegations, interrogation challenges, gang activity, and terrorism recruitment concerns. Okay. So we just talked about the Columbus, Ohio area. So there were 45,000 Somali residents there. There was fraud and economic scams. Okay. And the Somali owned business and individuals have faced probes for stamp trafficking and small scale welfare fraud, echoing Minnesota's issues. In 2019, federal case involved a Somali immigrant convicted of defrauding the USDA SNAP program by exchanging benefits for cash at ethnic grocery stores. Now, integration and crime. The community has grown rapidly in North Columbus neighborhoods like the Northland area, leading to reports of cultural clashes, property value drops, and vehicle break ins attributed to youth gangs. Residents have described no go zones. Now, that's very familiar, with makeshift prayer gatherings blocking streets and businesses shifting to halal markets. Now, no go zones, that's a term that's been used in Europe for years to describe zones that are predominantly from, and it is what it is, Middle Eastern individuals or people of Middle Eastern descent. They have areas the police just don't even go in. They know like the main people there, but it's almost like if anything happens in that community, they're not really policing that. That's dangerous because that's a danger to the rest of the community, because that says to the rest of the community, okay, we are going to back down to them, even though we're the authority. But if other communities say anything against those communities, right, then these no go zones, they're in trouble. So you can't speak against the people in the no go zones. Yeah, Europe is weird. And we don't want that over here. We really don't. Now, terrorism links. The 2016 Ohio State University attack, where a Somali student rammed and stabbed people, and that did happen, heightened fears with officials noting the area's role in ISIS recruitment from Somali youth. So that's Ohio. That's what's going on, and that's what that was brought up. But the lady was like talking, listen to the comments. So now Washington is also, now this is the state of Washington, not Washington D.C., Seattle and SeaTac areas. There are 25 to 30,000 Somali residents. Historical fraud scandals. In the 1990s, a major food stamp fraud ring run by Somali immigrants was busted, involving millions in trafficked benefits, predating Minnesota's cases, but similar in scope. So they're all about explode. I should say, how do they? The word is escaping me. They are taking advantage of. I'll get the word in a moment. But they're taking advantage of the system, exploiting. That's what it is. They're exploiting the system, right? And so more recent probes have uncovered loan fraud and fake marriage schemes for immigration benefits. Like, this is wild. But is everybody, and I'm not saying that other communities don't do things like this on a smaller scale, but they're such a small community. And if they do anything on a large scale in such a small community, that's why it looks like it's the majority of people doing it. Just saying. Labor and exploitation. Many work in low wage jobs like meatpacking, where exploitation complaints have led to lawsuits against employers for wage theft and unsafe conditions, straining community ties. With the Minnesota scandal, advocates are calling for audits here, citing lax oversight in refugee settlement programs. So now the state of Washington is like, hey, we need this over here. Maine, okay, they have a community of 10 to 15,000 Somali residents. It's interesting how they're not in the South. They're not down here where it's warm. They're not. I mean, I'm sure there are some in Georgia, but there's not in large numbers like this. They're in all these cold weather places. I'm noticing. So I'm in Maine, Lewiston, and Portland, 10 to 15,000 Somali residents, and this is the fourth largest. There's gang violence and crime. Lewiston has seen a surge of in Somali youth gangs involved in shootings, drug trafficking, and car break-ins. A 2023 mosque parking lot shootout between rival groups drew national attention, with locals reporting increased fear in Little Somalia in their enclaves. That's has nothing to do with us, but it's just to show they're bringing their nonsense from over there over here. Y'all need to go back home, and I'm okay with it. You need to go over there and do whatever it is you do, and that should be okay. You got to do it. Now, welfare and housing fraud. Similar cases mirror Minnesota's, including the 2010 probes into overclaimed refugee assistance and Section 8 housing claims. A recent op-ed warned Maine could face a Minnesota-style billion-dollar scandal if unaddressed, given similar generous safety nets, exposing and exploiting the system. Economic strain, high welfare dependency, over 70% in some reports, has fueled debates, with community leaders pushing back against stereotypes while acknowledging integration hurdles like language barriers, because they refuse, some of them, to speak English. But you're in an English speaking country, then you need to go back to your country. That's where I'm at with it. You're not assimilating here, and that's okay, because you have somewhere else you can go. You're not a nomad. You can go back to your home country. Michigan, Detroit, Dearborn area, there are 15,000 Somali residents overlapping with the larger Arab Muslim communities. Fraud and scams. Cases of immigration fraud and small business tax evasions have been persecuted, often tied to the broader Middle Eastern immigrant networks. A 2020 federal bust uncovered a ring laundering welfare funds through ethnic stores, right? And that was something that they mentioned happened in Columbus, Ohio. So, and that shows a pattern of fraud, right? Because I guess they found it a way to easily do this in all these different states and exploit it. Cultural and security tensions, areas like Hamtramck, now majority Muslim, have informal Sharia patrols and courts, raising assimilation concerns. Yeah, how are you having a separate court system within the United States that's not governed by the Constitution? Like, okay, done. Y'all need to get up off the soil. You can't stay here because you're not assimilating. The community has been flagged for potential extremism with FBI monitoring for Al Shabaab ties similar to Minnesota. Non Somali residents describe hostile encounters and takeover. Neighborhoods with businesses fleeing due to perceived threats. Yeah. And the more people that they move out, they're just taking over. They just move their people further in, and still getting government funding to do it. Excuse me, what's going on in Michigan, the state? Period. This is a governor issue. Okay. Yeah. Other states with emerging issues: Kentucky, 5 to 10,000 welfare fraud in refugee programs and youth gang activity. A 2021 case involved Somali-led identity theft rings. So, Georgia, right? They have a smaller community, less than 5,000, but rising reports of food assistance scams and traffic in counterfeit documents. General trends across the state: Somali resettlement starting in the 1990s under programs like those during the Clinton era has led to clusters like Little Mogadishu. Common threads include high welfare use, 90% in some enclaves, terrorism recruitment, and 20 plus Minnesotans joined ISIS in the 2010s with parallels elsewhere, and fraud enabled by weak state oversight. Community leaders emphasize that most are hardworking citizens, over 15% born in many areas, and decry broad brush attacks. But critics point to systemic failures in vetting and integration. These patterns aren't isolated to one group. Fraud occurs in many immigrant communities, but the scale, and that's what I was saying, it's the scale of it in Somali enclaves has drawn federal attention, especially post Minnesota indictments. If this refers to the Trump era ICE operations and rhetoric, those are Minnesota specific so far, but experts warn of ripple effects nationwide. The deeper dives, okay, and it goes on. But yeah, that's the problem. And then, of course, I looked at Minnesota. Is in Minnesota where fraud found with Feeding Our Future, and then a jury overturned that allowed the fraud to continue. I wanted to see that timeline because that actually happened. So early on with Feeding Our Future, somebody was like, "Hey, there's fraud going on," and they stopped it. The Somali community came back and sued, claiming discrimination, and then turned around and still continued with the fraud. This happened. So in 2016, Feeding Our Future, it's founded, right, by Amy Bach as a nonprofit in Minnesota aimed at addressing child hunger in immigrant communities. 2019, the Minnesota Department of Education flags early red flags, such as implausibly high meal claims from the organization and its partners. So Bach is accused of pressuring staff who raised concerns. So if somebody came and said, "Hey, there's more," they're citing more meals than people in the area, she was basically like, don't talk about it. I'm just using that as an example, allegedly, right? Now, in February 2020, the IRS revokes Feeding Our Future's tax exempt status due to financial irregularities. So some things were going on. Now, this was in 2020, early 2020. Now, in November of 2020, Feeding Our Future sues the MDE, which is the Minnesota Department of Education, claiming discrimination against Somali led groups. The MDE, citing fraud risk, denies new grant application and labels the organization severely deficient, attempting to end its partnership. So they were like, no, there's fraud going on. We don't want to renew this. We're not doing it. So it wasn't like the Minnesota Department of Education didn't stand up. They did. Now, in December 2020, going into the spring of 2021, a Minnesota judge, John Guthman, rules there is no legal basis to halt federal payments immediately, warning of potential issues if grants are delayed. They already stated there was issues with fraud. And the judge is like, what are you talking about? So the MDE is later held in contempt and fined. So now they were pointing out fraud. They turned it around on them. They were held in contempt and fined $47,500 for processing delays. The FBI quietly begins investigating fraud in February 2021. The FBI raids multiple meal sites linked to Feeding Our Future. The organization is officially de-established, ending its operations and the fraudulent payments. So they continue with their fraud because they were allowed to, because the judge overturned it. It's crazy. September 2022, federal prosecutors led by U.S. Attorney Andrew M. Lunger announced charges against 47 individuals, former employees, and contractors in what is described as the largest COVID-19 relief fraud case in U.S. history. The scheme allegedly stole at least $250 million from 2019 to 2022. Fall of 2022 to 2024, indictments expand as the investigation uncovers more participants. By October of 2024, 70 people are charged across 14 indictments and 6 criminal informations. 2 more are added in May and June of 2025, bringing the total to 72. In April of 2024, the first federal trial begins in U.S. District Court in Minneapolis before Judge Nancy Brossel, involving 7 defendants accused of defrauding the program over $40 million. Evidence includes over 1,000 documents showing fake claims. So they had evidence of the fraud. Late May, early June 2024, during jury deliberations, a bribery scandal erupts. Family members of defendants attempt to bribe juror 52 with $120,000 in cash for a non-guilty vote. So not only were these people dealing in fraud, they had other people outside of the people indicted dealing in witness tampering. What? Okay. The bribe is recorded on video, leading to the jurors' dismissal, sequestration, and of the remaining jury, so they had to be sequestered, and federal charges against 5 people involved in the scheme, including 3 tied to trial defendants. Yeah, so it's a whole thing. Like, whatever's going on in Minnesota, y'all need help. Y'all need help. And we need you to handle this so other states, I'm here in Georgia, we got Maine, we got Columbus, Ohio, we have the state of Washington. We need help because we do not want those things happening here in our states. Just saying. So June 7, 2024, the jury delivers a split verdict after 3.5 days of deliberation. Not even 5 days of deliberation. 5 defendants are convicted on multiple counts: wire fraud, money laundering, bribery, including Abdaziz Shafi Farah, 21 counts, Mohammed Ismail Mohammed, we got all these. So the juror Jurors reject 21 of the 64 total counts. This, okay, so these two, Saeed, Farah, and Afin, are fully acquitted of all charges. So these two were. Jurors reject 21 of the 64 total counts. The acquittal is the jury overturn referenced in my, okay. Though it applied only to two individuals and did not reinstate the defunct program. Okay. So in May, June 2025. So now we're at this year. And it keeps jumping back and forth. The bribery suspects, Farah and the other Farah, a convicted fraud defendant in 2025, all pled guilty to juror bribery charges. Sentencing is pending. Okay. So October of last year, the first sentencing occurs. Mohammed Jama Ismail, convicted in 2024 trial, receives 12 years in prison in order to pay 47 million in restitution. So I'm glad that they at least got there. Now, in this year in 2025, the second major trial begins for ringleaders Amy Bach and co-conspirator Salam Saeed. Let's see, in March of this year, Bach and Saeed are convicted on all counts, including conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering. As of November 2025, out of the 78 total indicted suspects, over 50 have pled guilty, and 7, including Bach, Saeed, and 5 from the 2024 trial, have been convicted at trial. About 18 await trial or sentencing. Authorities have recovered roughly 75 million in stolen funds. So the acquittals did not allow fraud to continue, as the program was terminated in 2022 and remains defunct. However, the case highlighted systemic vulnerabilities in emergency relief programs and it did. It's very crazy what happened. I'm just saying. I started, down this rabbit hole, and I was like, whoa, this is a lot. So with that, let's take a quick break, and I will see you guys on the other side.
At All Sides, we believe unbiased. At All Sides, we give bias ratings for hundreds of media outlets. By freeing people from filter bubbles and providing different perspectives, we can all be better equipped to understand the world and each other. So how do we do it?
And welcome back to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And I have a comment from Sassy Lady. She says, unbelievable. These Somalian people are less than honest, lying and stealing. And it's some of them. It's not all of them. And that's the bad part, right? And it's hard to sift, right? Who's doing what? Because at the end of the day, they're loyal to one another. So it's like, okay, are you decrying the fraud that's going on, or do you just have blind loyalty irregardless? Now they can say we have blind loyalty irregardless. I mean, most communities do. Let's just admit it. I mean, there are Black Americans out there that commit crimes. I'm not going to throw them away. I'm going to say, like, you need to do better. I'm not going to throw them away, right? Because those are my people. So I get it. I get the loyalty within their community. The problem is you really do have to decry the fraud. And it's the amount of fraud that happens, but they basically exploited the loophole that's always been there. But nobody's taking advantage of it to this degree. It's finding that part. And I'm really glad that the USDA, they're doing the audits and they are going through, the steps to make sure that the states that are going to comply with USDA are going to comply to the audits. There's still 21 states out there that do not want to be audited. that are receiving SNAP benefits. This is the SNAP benefits. We're not talking about the other cash aid, but we are talking about the SNAP benefits. 21 states out of the 50 states are refusing to be audited by the USDA. Why? And Minnesota is one of them, by the way. I'll have to pull that up for you guys. I'll have to pull up the list for you. It's very crazy. But another thing that I did want to bring up today was the Social Security. Because going through this and the fraud, and I'm like, well, there's some areas where our federal government has allowed people that come over here to get Social Security, even though they haven't even paid in the system. So it says here, who can get supplemental security income? To be eligible for SSI as a non-citizen, you must be in one of certain classifications granted by the Department of Homeland Security. You may be eligible for SSI if you are. Now, I don't know if these are still in place. This was, let's see, they don't give a date, but this was back under the previous administration's DHS. So I'm not sure if it still applies to today or if they're going to reverse it. But lawfully admitted for permanent residence. How are they getting SSI? But they're getting it. Granted conditional entry, paroled into the United States, admitted as a refugee, granted asylum, an alien whose removal is being withheld. Okay. So they basically went to court. The court said, okay, you can't deport them, but they're just here. But they can't work either because they don't have a green card. So they're giving them Social Security. Yeah, this is happening. Okay. A Cuban or Haitian entrant admitted as an American immigrant. Sorry. Admitted as an Afghan or Iraqi special immigrant. And there was the Iraqi person that, unfortunately shot those two National Guard officers. And admitted as an Afghan humanitarian parolee or Afghan non-special immigrant parolee. Admitted as a Ukrainian humanitarian parolee. In my opinion, that whole list needs to be abolished. If you are not an American citizen who has paid into Social Security, this should be a non-starter. Nobody from off the soil should ever be granted Social Security in our country. If you're listening, President Trump or any of your other people, this needs to be shut off immediately. Immediately. Should never be a time in our country where people are given Social Security who have not paid into the system off of the backs of the American people that have. Look, people, it's already a Ponzi scheme. It is. People at the bottom pay in, and the people that are older at the top get those payments from the people still paying into the system. It's disgusting. It is a Ponzi scheme. It needs to stop. The American people deserve better. And Beyond Spectacle says, this is how they got Social Security benefits. Oh, you sent me a video. Thank you. Maybe, let's see. The only thing about it is when you send me a video like that, I can't play it until after. So thank you. Maybe I can play it in tomorrow's show. I can go over it there. And then I also looked at, SSI benefits, who's eligible. And they give you basic, like who's eligible, right? Like 65 or older, blind, disabled, has limited income, has limited resources, is a U.S. citizen or national, right? Or a non-citizen in one of the certain alien classifications granted by the Department of Homeland Security. What I'm requesting for the Department of Homeland Security is we need to shut it all down. Is a resident, and see, this should be not resident. You should be a citizen in one of the 50 states, District of Columbia, North Marina Islands, is not absent from the United States, is not confirmed to an institution. But yeah, you get the gist of it. But see here, It doesn't really say, it doesn't outline the non-citizen part as I showed you in this document. Now, this was under the previous DHS secretary. So I'm really hoping that Kristi Noem is able to clean this up, right? That this part, that part needs to be cleaned up definitely. So the next part of the news I wanted to get into here, I wanted to finish it up just with Social Security, talking about this humanitarian parole information. Now, again, this is more than likely under the previous um, DHS. What is parole? Parole allows individuals who may not otherwise be allowed into the United States to enter the United States legally and stay temporarily. This is why Trump went through the course of ending temporary protected status. Even if they are inadmissible or ineligible for other reasons. Why would we want people in our country that shouldn't be here? But this loophole was created so they could come in. Again, this is more than likely under the previous administration. So parole is not considered admission to the United States. When a non-citizen is paroled into the United States, they are still considered an applicant for admission. Parole ends automatically when the authorized parole period expires or when the parolee leaves the United States. But my whole thing is, when people are on parole, that means they've committed a crime. Why was this even created? It has created such a mockery of our legal system. And the things that are being done to destabilize our country. This is a republic if we can keep it. Period. This is up to us. This falls at no one's feet but ours. And it says, what must you do to maintain your parole? To maintain parole and remain in the United States, you must meet certain conditions, right? Medical conditions, and then other conditions include comply with public health directives, comply with requests for additional information from Department of Homeland Security. All of these things. Failure to comply with conditions of parole. If you fail to comply with the conditions of parole, DHS may terminate your parole, detain you, or remove you from the United States, and you could be prevented from becoming a lawful permanent resident. So this is another way that people have been able to stay here, that lawful permanent residency. And Donald Trump is trying to end a lot of that, as he should. We have proper ports of entry into this country. We have an immigration process. But things like this, in my opinion, are interfering with the immigration process because DHS should never have the ability to mess with immigration. To me, this is it's like a sideline conversation. It's like, well, we're not granting them citizenship. We're just trying to make it so where people here are being recognized. That's not your job, DHS. But they've been given this because they are responsible for keeping our homeland safe. So these are what they consider guardrails in keeping us safe, but we haven't been safe. But it could lead to the destabilization of our country, bringing in people that don't belong here. Yeah. Just not smart, in my opinion, and it should have never happened. Now, I want to move on to a document that I found, and it's regarding the Genesis mission. I don't know if any of you guys heard about this. Of course, they dropped it right before the holidays. Nobody's really thinking about executive orders around Thanksgiving time, right? So this was dropped 2 weeks ago on Monday. That was my birthday. So launching the Genesis mission by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America. So the purpose from the founding of our republic, scientific discovery and technological innovation have driven American progress, prosperity. Today, America is in the race for global technology dominance in the development of artificial intelligence. an important frontier of scientific discovery and economic growth. To that end, my administration has taken a number of actions to win that race, including issuing multiple executive orders and implementing America's AI Action Plan, which recognizes the need to invest in AI enabled science to accelerate scientific advancement. In this pivotal moment, the challenges we face require a historic national effort, comparable in urgency and ambition to the Manhattan Project that was instrumental to our victory in World War II and was a critical basis for the foundation of the Department of Energy and its national laboratories. So the order launches the Genesis mission as a dedicated, coordinated national effort to unleash a new age of AI accelerated innovation and discovery that can solve the most challenging problems of this century. The Genesis mission will build and integrate AI platforms to harness federal scientific data sheets, the world's largest collection of such data sets developed over decades of federal investments to train scientific foundation models and create AI agents to test new hypotheses, automate research workflows, and accelerate scientific breakthroughs. The Genesis mission will bring together our nation's research and development resources, combining the efforts of brilliant American scientists, including those at our national laboratories, with pioneering American businesses, world renowned universities, and existing research infrastructure, data repositories, production plants, and national security sites. To achieve dramatic acceleration in AI development and utilization, we will harness for the benefit of our nation the revolution underway in computing and build on decades of innovation in semiconductors and high performance computing. The Genesis mission will dramatically accelerate scientific discovery, strengthen national security, secure energy dominance, enhance workforce productivity, and multiply the return on taxpayer investment into research and development, thereby furthering America's technological dominance and global strategic leadership. Now, I will definitely attach the link. It's 5 pages. It's not bad to go through it. My main concern is the way a lot of these AI companies are utilizing the areas they go to. So the data centers, and I'll just use them as an example. We have some here in Georgia, and there are other places too. But the ones we have in Georgia, they use water. They do not refilter the water that they use. So all the water that they use, anything that they spit out, is dirty water. Now it's dirtying the water in the communities to where you can't drink it. You can't use it because it's brown, it's dirty. Now, I do not know if within our state, if there are going to be regulations put on these data centers to where they have to ensure that they recycle the water so that fresh water is returned from whatever water they're using, because they use millions of gallons of water because they need a cooling resource so that the data center doesn't overheat. So they're using water. And yet I know you'd be like, well, why does it even matter? Because we do not have endless sources of water. Now there are other things that, in my opinion, they should use that they're not using. Like we have Moses West, who has figured out, and he has a machine that takes the atmosphere and it turns it into water. What, in my opinion, what would be a great thing is for that company to utilize Moses's machine. And then Moses creates another machine that recycles that used water and returns it back into the data center. So you're not even messing with environmental water. You can just use the atmosphere and use the water from there. then that way we actually have clean water that is not messed with. But people are not thinking that far down the road. They're just looking at, like, look what we can do, look what we can have. And we're not thinking about the safety of people down the line, because all of these things always end up with like an Aaron Brockovich story, right? And what I'm saying is people end up with cancer and all kinds of other craziness. And those are the things that we do not want in our society. So tomorrow we're going to look at, what the president has been up to. I want to look at some of the executive orders since January till now, some people that he's nominated, and just look at, okay, what's going on at the top, because we do have all of these other things going on. There's always going to be something going on. There's always going to be a distraction, but we have to really be mindful of, okay, what's happened so far? Where do we need to go? And then, right? What do we need to ask the White House and say, hey, these are the things that we actually need to be doing. Out of all the things that you've done so far, this is a sticking point with the American people, and this is what we want to see move forward. I think, and this is just my opinion, a lot of people are now looking at deportations, right? ICE is still out there removing people that are considered dangerous individuals, but now it's more widespread. It's just on any individual that has deportation orders of removal, and those people should be removed. They have the opportunity to actually get $1,000 to go back home, so that they can wait their 2 to 3 years. So if they wanted to come back, they could come back the right way, not the wrong way. And that's better for everyone. Okay. So with that, we're going to end the stream. Thank you guys so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News for this Monday recap. And we will see you in the next one. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you guys.